Hi student. In this chapter, we are briefly introducing what is business analytics and what drives business analytics nowadays. First, let's talk about what actually drives or spurred recent explosive growth in the use of analytical methods in business applications. I want you to look at your smartphone. What types of data does it collect every day? If you're on Facebook using the smartphone app, it probably collects data about your daily usage of Facebook. And when you go to a grocery store such as Walmart and use the point of sale scanner, and it also collects tons of data every day through brick and mortar stores and as well as e-commerce such as Amazon.com. So the first development is the technology that allows us to capture tons of data. And as well, business want to use the data to improve the efficiency and profitability of their operations. For example, how does Amazon use the information that they collected through customers' browsing behavior online? You probably have seen that when you click on a product, Amazon also makes suggestions about 70% of the customers who browsed this item also viewed another item. That is one real application of business analytics. Second, the ongoing research has resulted in numerous new methodological developments, including the advances in computational approaches to effectively handle and explore massive amounts of data, which we call it the big data, and also faster algorithms for optimization and simulation, and more effective approaches for visualizing data. Considering that Amazon is accumulating terabytes of data every single day by just capturing the customer's browsing behavior. Back in 10 years, we don't have the capability of processing that huge amounts of data. But nowadays, thanks to the parallel computing, cloud computing, and all those fancy technologies, we not only have the capability, but also we have the new methodology to process those types of data. Last but not least, as I mentioned, cloud computing and the more recent development of distributed computing gives us tons of computational power. When I first used computers, I only used a computer which is a PC personal-based computer that running Windows operating system and disk operating system, we call it DOS. I only have 2 megabyte of memory. Remember, it's 2 megabyte. Not nowadays, we have 10 gigabytes of memory and massive amount of storage using cloud computing and cloud storage. So the evolution of the computing technology also boosts the use or the growth of using analytical methods in business applications. A figure shows a graph generated by Google Trends that displays the search volume for the word analytics from 2004 to 2013 on a percentage basis from the peak. It clearly illustrates that interest in analytics has tripled from 2005 or 2006 to 2013. So why do we need analytics or analytical decision making? This is the key to the importance of analytics in real businesses. As a manager or employer in one single organization, his or her responsibilities include to make strategic, tactical, or operational decisions. So what is strategic decisions? That involves higher level issues concerned with overall direction of the organization. And some examples include Apple is moving in the direction of self-driving cars. That's a strategic decision. Why do they move into the arena of self-driving cars? Because it's a trend. And if they lose that market or they don't move first, they're going to lose a lot of revenues from future customers. Second is the tactical decisions, which concern how the organization should achieve the goals and objectives set by its strategy. Right? For example, by leading the self-driving car development, they need to actually set up the AI, artificial intelligence center, and enrich their capability in that area. They need to hire employers with that capability. And last but not least, which is operational decisions, affect how the firm is run from day to day. One good example is, for example, Apple is trying to manufacture iPhone 7. But how many to produce depends on the sales forecast and their production capability, as well as their supply chain capabilities. That is an operational decision. So how does analytics play an important role in the decision-making process? We need to identify the steps or the process of the decision-making. Let's consider the case of TRC, which is a company. And historically, TRC has been a catalog-based retail sellers of running shoes and apparel. TRC sales revenue grew quickly as it changed its emphasis from catalog-based sales to internet-based sales. And recently, TRC decided that it should also establish retail stores in the malls and downtown area of major cities. This is a strategic decision that will take the firm in a new direction that it hopes will complement its internet-based strategy. And TRC middle managers will therefore have to make a variety of tactical decisions in support of this strategic decision, including how many new stores to open this year, where to open these new stores, how many distribution centers will be needed to support the new stores, and where to locate these distribution centers. And last but not least, operations managers in the stores will need to make day-to-day decisions regarding, for instance, how many pairs of each model and size of shoes to order from the distribution centers and how to schedule their sales personnel. And the decision-making process can be further defined as identify and define the problem, determine the criteria that will be used to evaluate alternative solutions, and determine the set of alternative solutions, evaluate the alternative, and choose an alternative. Oh, that's a long step. So let's look at how does managers make decisions in the next slide. As you can see, common approaches to make decisions include the traditional intuition. I feel this way, so we should do it this way. A rule of thumb, if the inventory of the t-shirt is going below 5, we should reorder. Or using the relevant data available, which is what we emphasize in this course, which we call it the business analytics approach. So let's take a look at how do we define business analytics. Business analytics is defined as a scientific process of transforming data into insight for making better decisions, used for data-driven or fact-based decision-making, which is often seen as more objective than other alternatives for decision-making. Of course, we are making decisions based on facts, not based on our hunches. That is the key to business analytics. How can business analytics help us to make better decisions? Business analytics allows us to create insights from data. improve our ability to more accurately forecast for planning, help us to quantify risks, yield better alternatives through analysis and optimization. And in this course, we will touch on each one of the points in this slide. And this is very important. We are using a hands-on approach, which is using cases and solutions provided for each case to understand how business analytics can be adopted. Now we understand the capability of business analytics. The next few slides will give us a brief categorization of analytical methods and models. And the very first one is, of course, the descriptive analytics. And it encompasses the set of techniques that describes what has happened in the past. That includes the data queries, reports, descriptive statistics, and data visualization, data mining techniques, and basic what-if spreadsheet models. A good example is, historically, what is the temperature in January 3rd for the past 5 years? That is just the data. It's a query. And based on the query, we can see that on average, January 3rd, the average temperature will be 45 degrees Fahrenheit. That's an example of descriptive analytics. It sounds really simple, but we are only talking about one type of data here, which is numerical data. And in our chapter 2, we will understand different ways of processing of different types of data. Again, it all falls into the bigger category of descriptive analytics. Second category is predictive analytics. It consists of techniques that use mathematical models to construct from past data to predict the future or the impact of one variable on another. Go back to our example of the temperature in January 3rd. Based on historical data, we can see a maybe not consistent trend that the temperature in January 3rd has slightly increased in the past 5 years. And therefore, we are predicting that next year, the temperature will also go up slightly. Instead of 40-ish degrees, it might hit 50. And this is a very simple example of predictive analytics. It's based on historical information to make projections of the future. The third type of analytics, or category of analytics, is what we call prescriptive analytics. It indicates a best course of action to take, and those models used in the prescriptive analytics include the optimization models, simulation optimization, and decision analysis. And a few examples include, if you're trading stocks, what happens if the stock price falls 10% today? What happens if the stock prices went down by 30% in the past 3 months? And the goal is to optimize your portfolio value that you have invested in stocks. That's a financial part. And another interesting example is when you see the gas prices going up every day, what would you do? In order to minimize the cost that you spend on gas. And those are considered prescriptive analytics. After reviewing the 3 categories of business analytics, it comes down to the data. Nowadays, the big popular term for data is what we call big data. So what is big data? It is a set of data that cannot be managed, processed, or analyzed with commonly available software in a reasonable amount of time. Considering that you have 2 terabytes of data, Can you open that data in Microsoft Excel? The answer is maybe, but usually you can't. Even if you can open it in Microsoft Excel, it'll take a couple of days before you can read those data, and it'll take forever to process those types of data using Excel, because a single computer does not have the capability of handling the big data. It also presents analytical challenges from a processing point of view, and consequently has itself led to an increase in the use of analytics. Alright, now we know what is business analytics and what are the few categories in business analytics and what are the challenges of the big data presented to us. So now let's see business analytics in practice. What you see is a few companies actually do apply business analytics, and they give them a couple of competitive advantages. And companies that apply analytics often follow a trajectory similar to what's shown in this figure. Organizations usually start with basic analytics in the lower left corner. As they realize that the advantage of analytic techniques, they often progress to more sophisticated techniques in an effort to reap the derived competitive advantage. And predictive and prescriptive analytics are sometimes therefore referred to as advanced analytics. And some of you may have heard of the news that the champion of one Asian game, which is Go, was defeated by a computer program. That was in the US news like a couple of days back. And this program was invented by Google. Why Google is investing in the analytics or the artificial intelligence in that area, which Google, the firm itself, is a search engine provider. Because Google is trying to reap the competitive advantage by investing in those analytics. And the artificial intelligence is a tool for them to use. If they invest in those techniques, they will be able to one day replace human experts with those artificial intelligence so that they can make better predictions what's going to happen. As I mentioned earlier, analytics can be applied in different areas, including the financial analytics and use of predictive models to forecast future financial performance. A lot of financial institutions, including TIAA Craft, already invested in this area, and they have this auto trading mechanisms. Try to minimize the risk and optimize the profit. Second is the human resource analytics. Wow, that sounds really interesting. Earlier in 2016, the firm LinkedIn.com was acquired by Microsoft. So most of you have heard of the company LinkedIn.com as the online HR platform. Basically, it's creating a social network for professionals to be connected with each other. How does HR plays an important role here, and how does HR analytics play an important role here? Based on the analytics provided by LinkedIn.com, they can understand the career path and how do professionals move around the industry, and what is the compensation, and what determines the success of a professional. Those are the power of HR analytics in action. Of course, we mentioned about the marketing analytics in my earlier slides when we talked about Amazon.com, how Amazon makes suggestions about their search result. And this is just one single use of analytics, and there are tons of different use of analytics, including market basket analysis and etc. From this chart, you can clearly see that the interest in marketing analytics, financial analytics, HR analytics has increased significantly in the past 8 years. And one recent trend of business analytics in practice is the sports analytics. How do we use information that are captured either in the videotapes or by reports to make better predictions of the games, or to make better predictions of each player in the game? This concludes the first chapter of business analytics, and it is important that you go through the chapter 1 carefully by reading the examples. And this presentation is only giving you an introduction of business analytics, and I hope that you enjoy reading chapter 1, and I'll see you next chapter.